in Canada right now, the most vocal, outspoken group against the LGBTQ plus indoctrination of gender ideology in children are Muslims. And the Christians have been waking up in Canada saying, wait a second, the Muslims are coming out and they're doing the loudest.
They're doing what we should have been doing.
Yeah, and now they're joining together and they're launching this 1 million person march in Canada on September 20th or 21st or whatever. So Muslims. And that's interesting, right? Because this is exactly what the left doesn't want to admit. They don't want to have any denigration or acknowledgement of Muslims who have been very outspoken against the LGBTQ plus indoctrination of children, saying, keep your hands off our children. Don't be pushing surgeries or, hormones or puberty blockers or anything on our children. And when you hear that said, of course, that's, you hear for what's her name, former Jen Psaki, former White House press secretary, says that when Muslims say that or say that out loud, they're only being influenced by the far right, that they're not free thinking.
Right. That is also the talking
and
point.
Don't you think?
Well, Justin Trudeau in Canada is at it once again. As part of its LGBTQ plus action plan, the Trudeau government has awarded $1.1 million as part of a Purge Fund that targets hateful parents opposing gender ideology and LGBTQ plus indoctrination. So if you're outspoken against it, if you're a parent who doesn't want the government involved in gender ideology, the Trudeau government now is using taxpayer dollars to go after you. This is outrageous. Journalist David Krayden helped uncover the story in Canada, and he joins us now. David, good to see you. What is this contract to Sept Communications? This contract apparently was awarded to Sept Communications back at the end of July. And you had to really dig to even find this information. What does this contract say? What is it asking this group to do?
Well, what it's asking this group to do, to get down to brass tacks about this, is to harass and go after parents who are really opposed to their children being exposed to gender ideology in the schools. It doesn't specifically say that, but here's how the contract reads, and it's Sept Communications. Now, I have no idea if they're a liberal insider group. I highly suspect they might be, because that's how this government has done business traditionally. But the contract reads that they have been charged to develop, manage, two LGBTQ+, I'm going to say that once, anti-stigma awareness and marketing campaign aimed at targeted segments of people. Now, it goes on to say the campaign should address hateful propaganda and debunk disinformation that is allegedly, or as they say, targeting LGBTQ people. Now, these targeted segments of people can be just about anybody. But Trudeau let the cat out of the bag when he said parents opposing gender ideology in the schools or anybody opposing Gay Pride Month is hateful and is a captive of the far right. So that's who these hateful people are. Clearly, Trudeau is once again marginalizing, going after everyday parents who don't think their 10-year-old should be making decisions about their gender, or don't think their 10-year-olds should become captive to a school system that might have them sexually changed.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So as we go through, and you can see this, it's an anti-stigma awareness marketing campaign that they're being awarded for this $1.1 million. And this is part of a larger initiative. I mean, over $100 million scheme, right? As you write in this piece in the Post Millennial, that this was just one piece of this sort of giant kitty right now that's being devoted for this campaign, is it not?
Yeah, it's quite strange because a year ago, August 28th, 2022, Trudeau had a news conference here in Ottawa just before he hopped off to the Gay Pride Parade in the city, the first one in 2 years because of COVID. And he announced $100 million for this LGBTQ action plan. Now, a lot of people said, well, how are you going to spend money like this? Well, clearly he's finding ways to spend money on this project, not just to find people to harass and intimidate parents or anybody who might find some objection to this whole Pride Month scheme, but he's found some really bizarre ways, and I explore this in the article. They've commissioned, it's hard to believe, but they've commissioned choral pieces of music to be written about what they call the gay purge, when homosexuals were released from the armed forces or the civil service of the RCMP because their sexual orientation in those days certainly had the tendency for blackmail, and they were released. But as part of this gay purge project, he's commissioned choral pieces to be written, and there was a huge concert in Halifax, Nova Scotia, celebrating these pieces of music. They've commissioned a monument, an LGBTQ monument for Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm not sure if they really want this in Winnipeg, Manitoba, but they're going to get it anyway. And they've also, one of the other projects mentioned on the website is to explore queer history. And so they've found a historian who's looking into how soldiers in the First World War were supposedly subject to horrible treatment. And and this is how he's finding any way to spend money. But the funny thing is, it's virtually impossible to find this information. You have to go through the Government of Canada's Pride Season webpage, which you won't find immediately because you have to go into the Women and Gender Equality Canada webpage. So you might think, well, what does women and gender equality have to do with LGBTQ Pride Season? Virtually nothing. But Trudeau's hidden this thing here, so most people are never going to find it. And we discover in other ways people who are researching, people who find a contract, people who say, hey, what is this all about? And this is how we're discovering how the money's being spent, because it's not being documented. All of the money's not being documented on this Pride Season website. And I found it astounding to learn that there really is such a thing as a Pride Season, because we've joked about this.
Right. Instead of Pride Month, it's now Pride Season.
Yeah, it was always supposed to be Pride Month in June, which of course is being foisted upon the school children. They have to salute the gay pride flag or else they're considered to be absolutely deplorable people and hateful. But if you look at the website, the Government of Canada has actually set aside not 1 month, but 4 months from June, at the beginning of June to the end of September, to celebrate gay pride. And so Trudeau often talked about Pride Season, and people would say, oh, yeah, isn't he optimistic? But he wasn't speaking out of turn. He really did privately invoke a Pride Season. It is 4 months of the year. It's even longer than a normal season. So the machinations of this Trudeau government are just incredible. And it never ceases to amaze me how they find ways to spend taxpayer money. And these poor parents are having their own taxpayer dollars used against them. I mean, this has got to be one of the worst and most malicious schemes of any government in the Western world. But this is what they're doing.
Yeah, you pay taxpayer dollars into the Trudeau government, and then they're funneling it out into a scheme to come back at you if you speak out against the indoctrination of gender ideology, or top or bottom surgeries or anything like that you don't want your children to be subjected to in school. You speak out about that, you will be targeted as part of this anti-smear campaign. Do we know the details of exactly how this Sept Communications plans to find and, eradicate those people who speak out against this? Do we know what tools and mechanisms specifically they're using to find and identify people who are against this ideology, these gender ideology and indoctrination of children?
No. I currently don't know that, but you can bet that's going to be a follow-up story, because exactly what are they going to do to implement this communication strategy? I mean, what kind of...
It seems like misinformation or disinformation, right? It's supposed to be targeted responses, right? So I'm really curious, what rises to the threshold where this Sept Communications would then jump into action, launch some sort of a response post or social media post, or try to, I don't know, force Facebook or Twitter or somebody else to take down a post, they would identify or report it as part of this campaign. It'd be really interesting to see what these mechanisms are, right?
Well, it fascinates me because, as I've said several times, as part of Trudeau's trilogy censorship bill, the online safety bill is up probably in the fall here, in September, October. And this is going to target disinformation, which the bill will not define. And I've read all of the focus groups that they've talked to, they've specifically said we're not going to define disinformation because that's going to make it harder to prosecute people.
Right.
So they have put their design out there. It's clear that they want to go after people on the basis of virtually nothing. But you know what really angers me about this is that why are we spending $100 million to promote LGBTQ? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is a group, even if you include all of this alphabet soup in this membership, that is not facing persecution. They have incredible tolerance in this country. They are in no danger. And in fact, if you look at most television shows, most entertainment promotes this lifestyle as something that's not just tolerable, but is actually preferable to the heterosexual lifestyle.
Right.
And if a government came out and said, we're going to spend $100 million promoting heterosexuality, we're going to tell you the best porn sites to go on, we're going to talk about Kuma Satra, we're going to tell you all of this, people would say, hey, isn't this kind of weird? Aren't we over-sexualizing the role of the government? And clearly this is over-sexualizing everything in this country.
Right. Yeah. What if they were promoting a husband and wife, or a two-parent household, or it would be outrageous. It would be absolutely outrageous if we did this. I had a friend of mine recently in Canada say, I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own home. Why do we have to have parades to celebrate it and force it down our children's throats in schools? It's despicable. And again, I don't think any Canadians are really speaking out against the homosexuality and the pride portion of this. I think they're really speaking out about the indoctrination of children and what children are being forced to deal with in schools when they sign up, using pronouns or all of these things, and that sort of indoctrination, and the literature and the children's books that are now being printed and handed out to children is really deplorable. I think that's what, maybe I'm wrong, let us know in the chat, but I think that's where people are drawing the line here. And you're certainly seeing this 1 million person march about to hit Canada in September. A lot of the Muslim community that's outraged about the Trudeau government forcing this on their children. Keep your hands off our children is part of their motto. Am I wrong about that?
I don't think you're wrong at all, because it really is focused right now on the gender ideology. That has been the one plank in this whole project that Canadians have just said enough is enough on. And the 1 million person march that is being planned for September 20th across Canada, including here in Ottawa, is gaining momentum because people have just said enough. But they're also sick of the fact that these gay pride parades are becoming increasingly graphic and obscene, with men walking around literally nude and flashing their bodies at young children. Now, this should be illegal. There are laws against this on the books, but the police have said, and we've reported on this in the Post Millennial, the police refuse to enforce the law because it's a special gay pride event. So therefore, they're exempt somehow. Exempt under which law? This is totally discretionary. The police are afraid to enforce the law when it involves this protected community. And people are sick of this too. Let people live their own lives, but stop pushing your ideology. Stop pushing your agenda, not only on children, but on the populace at large, because we all have our freedom and equality under the law, but not under a Trudeau government, which is focused entirely on identity politics, on dividing people on the basis of their gender, on their race, on their religion, on their sexuality. That's what Trudeau is all about, dividing people and trying to conquer. But it's evidently not working anymore, because he's always relied on the immigrant vote to stay in power. The Liberal Party, just like the Democratic Party, thinks if it brings in enough immigrants, it can win elections. Those immigrants are now turning against this Liberal government because they say, we didn't come to Canada for this kind of thing. We came here for freedom of speech, which we're losing. We came here to live as productive citizens and not be forced into believing sexual ideologies that are contrary to our faith. And this is what the Million Person March is all about. Muslims have said enough. And evangelical Christians, conservative Catholics, Hindus, Sikhs, Jews are saying, yeah, I think we've had enough too. And it's time to take a stand because we've been pushed so far. Trudeau's going to push us no farther.
Yeah. Well, the Trudeau government at it once again. David Krayden, great writing on this. And thanks for breaking this piece of the story open for us. I look forward to the follow-ups here to find out exactly the mechanisms and how they plan to go after these parents for trying to protect their children from this gender ideology that this government is pushing. David, thank you so much. Great seeing you.
Thank you, Clayton. Pleasure being here as always.
Thanks so much, David. And thanks to great independent journalists like David Krayden, we're able to bring you these stories. So thank you for your support.
Hi, it's David Krayden here. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting the station. We could not move forward without you. What we're trying to do every week here is bring you the news you might not see everywhere else. And we're coming against Justin Trudeau's internet censorship laws. Please subscribe, ring that bell if you haven't done so already. I know it's annoying to ask. Believe me, I'm not a salesman. I'm a writer. But I really implore you to do that because I need this station to keep going. We want to keep bringing you the news that you want to hear. And if you want a story covered, let me know, please. Because that's where I'm getting a lot of news information from your tips. So thank you for being there for me. And you can also support this station by going on my Substack and subscribing for $8 a month. Yes, I know it's free, but I can also use your support. So please do that if you can. And I'll continue to be here every week, every day if must needs be, to tell you what's really happening in this world of ours. And I'm in nobody's pocket, but I am on your side.